first I wanted to say thank you to everyone who's attending, and we all really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and meet with us, and I think this is a really great way of keeping in touch. For those of you who are in the in-person meeting here back in September, you'll remember that we sort of changed the format quite a bit, and so Joe and I really wanted to change sort of the dynamics of what we are asking you guys to do, and that is sort of putting more work on you, or at least getting more information out of you, rather than just using our in-person time as sort of an information dump. We thought that we would use that time, as you all recall, to sort of ask your opinion, have more discussion, more dialogue, more conversation, and then you guys told us you wanted to have more of that information check-in, but sort of in smaller increments throughout the year. So this is our first attempt at that first bit of information download for you, so that again we can work you like dogs when we have you in person. So now that I've done that and sort of framed it for those of you who were unable to attend in September, reminding you that we've decided to do a 1-hour sort of update somewhat regularly throughout the year, and then just one in-person meeting again. So I will go ahead and get started. I think you guys can see my quick agenda on the screen. Is that right?
Correct.
I'm going to take that as a yes. All right, so we've done welcome and introductions, and we're going to start this section of the meeting with just an update on our enhancement grants. And just a gentle reminder, if you're not speaking, go ahead and mute yourself. And then when you do speak, just a reminder to unmute yourself. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. If at any point someone has questions, you can ask me during the presentation, although I don't have the chat screen up on my screen because I'm trying to focus on my presentation. But I also have a little bit of time built in at the end for questions. So if it's all the same, you might want to just hold your questions to the end, and I'll try and leave time for them. Otherwise, feel free to jump in. So in the past, you see here on my screen, I have past numbers of grants that were both awarded and received. And you can see from 2011, which is when the program essentially started. I believe it started here in 2010. So 2011 was the first year of RFA, with grants awarded at number of 5 grants, and only 8 were received. In 2012, there was no RFA, so no grants were awarded. And I'm not going to read through all of them, but I thought it was very interesting that in 2013, we had 24 grants that were received, 17 were awarded, and then we dropped down to fewer than 20 in each of 2014 and 2015. Other than 2013, where we awarded 17 grants, which were quite substantial, we keep the numbers. There's, I guess, nothing consistent about the numbers. Essentially, the way it works, as you all might recall, is that we have a set amount of dollars set aside for our grant program. And essentially what we do is when we run the grant panel, we say, okay, this is how much money we're able to award to the grants programs. We start at the top. All the grants are ranked 1, which is high ranking or outstanding, and then we rank them in lower, going all the way down to the last number of grants, which would be at the end, which would be do not fund. So we start at the top and we fund the first ones until we run out of money. So depending on how many are received and how they're all ranked, that would depend on how many are awarded. Now, we've always run a very successful grants program, and the big concern has been, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but the concern has been that, as you can see in this table, thanks to Jean-Jacques for throwing this together for me, that while we represent 13 states and 2 territories in the southern region, we don't always have a good cross-section of states in the South represented by our grants program. And that's one of the things that we've really tried to enhance. And so the first question is, what do we have? So here with this table, we're sort of answering what states typically participate, which ones are not participating. And this is just to give you sort of just a quick look at where we've been in the past in terms of awarded grants, and that's what this table is. And you can see Florida's always been very successful, North Carolina, Texas, and the rest of them, Georgia, of course, has been a good job. Everything else is a little bit spotty. And I'm still having trouble getting my thing to move forward. Okay, so Joe and I talk to each other every week, and recently we found ourselves saying, you know, how do we better communicate the Southern IPM Center's message to the rest of the states in the South? Part of our mission here at the Southern IPM Center is to help facilitate IPM, whether it's research or communications or outreach, across the whole southern region, not just North Carolina, Texas, and Florida, right? And so when we talked about how we could do a better job, Joe, of course, says, well, we can use technology to sort of give us an idea of where we are and maybe to help get the word out a little bit better. So what we did, and I'm kind of gotten a little ahead of myself, but what we did for this year's RFA, for those of you who applied, you already know this, but we put up what I think we refer to as a survey wall in order to access the RFA documents. But before we put up the RFA online for everyone to be able to access, we stayed with the new, what we call sort of new school approach for the RFA, which is very outcome-based. We did a lot of reworking of the language of the RFA before we published it. And then also exciting is that the scoring criteria now matches not only what the panel sees in order to score each successful proposal, but also the forms in which the successful PIs will report their information back to the center, so that hopefully we'll be able to do a better job of articulating exactly what our products, our outcomes, and our impacts are at the end of the year. So now I come back to the survey wall, and again we put up a survey wall in order to access any of the RFA documents once the RFA went out via email or online. Now, just as a quick caveat, that survey wall was not a mandatory survey wall. You had the opportunity to skip it if you wanted to. Okay, and Joe, at any point if I misrepresent our survey, just let me know. I think that's how it worked, right? Everyone had the opportunity to fill out the survey, but it was not mandatory.
That's correct. If they read the instructions at top, it told them to bypass this, go to the bottom and click the link.
Thank you. So we wanted to make it accessible to everybody, but fortunately, most people really did take the opportunity to fill out our fairly brief survey. And here's what we learned from that survey. We had 94 users that actually downloaded the RFA, and Joe put some statistics here. A lot of people came back to the site before they chose to download the RFA. We had 177 different downloads. And I thought this was interesting. I have this marked in red. A third of our survey respondents let us know that this was their first year of looking at the grants program. So I took from that we did a really good job getting the information out this year. Obviously, we can do a better job, but again, our goal was to get more information out to more states and to more folks in the southern region, and I think we're doing a better job of that, as is obvious by this item here on the survey. Also, just FYI, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but we also had a good cross-section of folks who accessed it. Not only university researchers or extension specialists, but we had 10 nonprofit organizations look at it, 5 from the private sector, and other people from other different categories that I'm not going to list here. So I thought that was also really interesting. And then Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Texas had the most respondents. This is a little bit, it's not a great slide, but it gives you the information that I want you to see. I don't have the axes listed, I apologize. This is essentially survey responses by state. I'm going to go ahead and skip that because I just told you that information. This is also interesting. This is essentially, are we getting the full South? Are we getting enough information out to our stakeholders in the South to give them the opportunity to apply for these grants? And I think we're doing a better job of that as is shown by this figure here. States represented by all PDs. On the earlier states, you saw that Florida, North Carolina, Texas were always really well represented. They are here as well, but you'll also notice we have other states, Louisiana, one from South Carolina, Oklahoma is represented as well. So I think we're doing a little bit better job getting it out there. So to bring it back to this year and what we learned from our survey, we had more proposals successfully submitted this year than any other year. That's only by the number of one, of course, but still, we're on the way to getting more proposals, which means we're, I think, doing a better job getting the information out. Again, Texas, Florida, and North Carolina had the most proposals. However, we had 7 out of 15 states and territories represented. But if you add co-PIs, that means that we have 10 out of 15 states represented. So I think, again, we're doing a better job getting the information out and getting representation across the South. It's just interesting to note that we had no representation, and this is this year's proposals from Alabama, Arkansas, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, or Mississippi. Now, y'all remember from September, we're doing some sort of tap dancing, trying to reach some of the states that we haven't been able to reach in the past. We still don't have really good contacts in Mississippi. We're working on that. But just today, I have been corresponding with a researcher from Puerto Rico who would like to work on crop profiles. So it looks to me like we'll be able to add Puerto Rico to that list, bringing our number of states or territories up to 11 out of 15. So I think we're doing a better job. So I went through that all very quickly, but I just wanted to give you information on this year's enhancement grants as well as a little background. And just finally, we're putting our grant panel together this week, and we've gone through all the conflicts of interest, and I'm reaching out to PIs in other regions who are willing to sit on our grant panel. Joe and I hope to have that panel complete the first week in January, and then I think this year we have our project starting in March. And then I think I left enough time for questions or thoughts if anyone would like to go back to anything, or just have any, if you've used the survey that we put out, or if you applied for an RFA this year and you have general questions or thoughts on it, we'd love to hear it.
And we do have time, so feel free to speak up.
And Joe, you can take my screen away from me.
Denisha?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? It's Blair here in Mississippi.
Yes.
I see Mississippi's always at the bottom of the list. What can I do here to help promote the IPM Center and the enhancement grants? Here, I'm kind of in an isolated research station away from any major universities. We do have an active extension service here. And some folks there do apply for grants. They may not be aware of the enhancement grants program.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done, Blair. I apologize.
Oh, go ahead.
So I think when Rosemary talks about the communication plans, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, and we talked a little bit about it in September. You know, how can y'all get involved in helping us help you? Some of it is just sort of low-hanging fruit. You know, when you get information from us that you think it would be germane to have other people see, please feel free to send it on. You know, the other thing is that Joe and I are very slowly, now that we're, I think, in year 2 of our current grant, working our way around the South. And I would be willing, if you think folks would, and this goes to anybody out there, but I was talking about Mississippi specifically, and really because we haven't had a close relationship with the state or IPM folks there, we'd like to do a better job bringing you guys into the fold. I would be willing to come and give a seminar if you thought it was appropriate, you know, just to let people see the face of the Southern IPM Center, let them know about opportunities that, you know, where we could help them do a better job. And so I would be certainly willing to do that. And Joe and I are sort of working our way around the South slowly, as I mentioned, but we could put Mississippi at the top of the list.
Okay, then. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. This is Daniel Collins from Auckland State in Mississippi. So, yeah, we would willing to be pleased to take you up on that offer. And, you know, we did, I guess with some funding on our own, we did put on a regional IPM workshop back in June this year. But we can talk later. But, yes, we would be interested in you coming and visiting.
Great. Thank you both for that, and I will reach out to you after this meeting, and maybe we can talk about some dates and what would be appropriate.
Yes.
Okay. Danisha and the rest of the group, I have, this is Henry. I have a statement to make regarding Alabama. In the past, we've had people from our state that have applied for some of these grants, and we've had some success with some of these grants. This past year, essentially, we're going through, we're going through a lot of changes in terms of, we've had a couple of retirements, and our new, people are just about, establishing their program. So
Yeah.
hopefully from next year we should be back in shape. But I mean, I just wanted to share. I mean, in the past we've had a little bit of never like Florida, because you have more people in Florida and Texas that are. So at the end of the day, it's a reflection of the number of specialists and IPM related professionals that are in each state. So, but I just wanted to mention that that's why we didn't have we didn't have proposals this year. We're going through some transition with some of our positions now.
Yeah, thank you, Henry. And you have had, I think we had a number of responses on the survey from Alabama, so people were looking at it, and you're probably right. If they're coming in and it's their first year or even their second year, it's a lot of work. So, and that was just this year. We didn't see any from Alabama. In the past, you guys have been very successful.
And it's important to note that the numbers that Dinesh is showing aren't saying that IPM isn't happening in those states. It's just saying, well, in terms of us evaluating, are we doing an effective job of getting people to know about our programs? This is where we're currently looking at. So is it that they didn't get it or that they were just busy? I know some of our work groups didn't submit because they already had additional funds from other places. So they had no need for it. And that's fine. It's just trying to get to know what the reason was as opposed to just going, well, I guess we're doing it right.
Well, and this gives us a starting point for next year. Okay. Unless there are other questions, we should probably keep moving because I hope to make sure that we honor your time on here, and we have a very aggressive schedule. So, Joe, you're up next.
Switching to putting my webcam up. So another area that you all have asked for more information on is what's going on with some of the programs and technology we're offering. And it's more of that we're helping facilitate the use of than programming it all and doing it all. We do have groups we're working with that do that, but we're more facilitating the relationship and helping people out with it. And as opposed to going into any particular product and give some abstract explanation of, well, you go here, you click this button, and this happens, I figured I'd go with something a little more direct on a particular case study that we've been looking at among the different folks that come to us wanting to deal with invasive pests and how they do outreach and respond to what's going on. Figuring that might put a little more bones behind what you're actually looking at, so it's not just some random tool. So this is what we've been working on a lot through our facilitation of innovation through technology. And as I mentioned, it's taking tools that already exist, that are already available, and helping people work with them, integrate them into their programs to facilitate better solutions through some of this technology. Biologists are wonderful people, but technology can often present a heck of a learning curve for them. So we're trying to present some options for them to be able to better address what they have to do. And the groups I'm mainly focusing on here are ones that we've dealt with in the past couple of years. There's been a working group, or actually a task force, on kudzu bug. Tawny Crazy Ant was actually a funded working group last year out of Alabama, with Fudd Graham leading that up. Spotted wing Drosophila was funded back in 2013 and then went on to get additional funding for all their projects. And sugarcane aphid and crepe myrtle bark scale haven't been formal working groups, but they have kind of assembled a task force in the region that are addressing it. And they've contacted us from time to time about how to work with different types of information and help facilitate where that's going to go. And they're all facing the exact same problem. Every time a new pest comes in, the same exact questions get asked. What is it, and what does it look like? So I can identify what it is. What does it do? What kind of damage am I expecting to see? Where is it found? What's being done about it? You know, nice to know that someone's actually doing research and where the priorities are being set. And then how do I control it? Who can help me come up with some solutions? And then down the road, where some of these growers get over the shock and awe of what happens when a new pest comes in, how can I help this effort move forward? So with each of these groups, they each get together, they look at this and go, yeah, these are the basic things that come up whenever you have a new invasion. So we start off with them in working with them on content. That one of the biggest things you're going to need is materials that can be handed out for people so they can see what it is, see this information, and people who are involved in extension have a ready source of stuff. They know I can go here, take this, hand it out to people. I could use these materials to make up new things. I have permission to use all these things that are available. We all have limited time in our day, and the idea of for every presentation or fact sheet, I need to make up my own for my own presentations hasn't really been something a lot of people wanted to go on to. If they've got one sheet with really good material, they're happy to use it in multiple places. So we generally start looking at different types of the raw materials, the images of the pest, videos of its behavior, some basic information on biology and control, some nice text, clear text paragraphs describing it, and then different places where people are posting news on what's going on with those individual pests. From these raw materials, we start getting some compiled products produced, some being the pest alert bulletins, which I won't go into too much detail in this presentation, but the North Central IPM Center has offered to help with all the layout and publication and creation of pest bulletins. So they have an entire set of these, which is the very basic information you would need in a fairly generic fact sheet that can be handed out to raise awareness. There's also the first detector presentations, the presentation that anyone can grab, pick up, and they're going to do a presentation to introduce people to the topic. Generally created with a number of images and all the information compiled into some nice PowerPoint. So in delivering the different types of content, we have a number of systems we're using to do that. A lot of these are based at Bugwood because we've been doing this type of work for a long time. The developments handled by other grants and things, we're facilitating the use of them. The big advantage to the content that's in these systems is absolutely everything is freely available for non-commercial use as long as it's cited. So for extension, that's perfect. It's something they know they can take and use. All they need to do is make sure they cite the actual authors or whoever created it. We do a lot of work in making all the content embeddable, so you don't have to send people to the Bugwood website to be able to find that content. You can actually use it out on your own websites, and we're tracking how it's being used. So if you're curious on the statistics to know, well, how often are these particular pictures we put up used, you have that. There's a number of different types of content that we look at. I've kind of broken them out into two categories here of static content, individual images and videos that once you upload, that's kind of your content that you're going to have. And then some updatable content that you can select a group of pictures that you want to use somewhere, or you have a presentation that you may update over time, or you have a collection of resources like news feeds and other things that you would want to update. Where this actually comes into practice is, say I have this presentation here on spotted lanternfly, that I wish people to see. Okay, that's great. It's on Bugwood Presents. You could also have a collection on Bugwood Images of images, but on all these different pieces of content, you've got an option at the top to share it, which tells you exactly, copy and paste this code to your website. It will put this exact presentation on your website. The big advantage with the updatable content is that you can come back later and replace this presentation with a new one because there's new information or something that's been updated. When you do that, anywhere this content is embedded, it updates it there as well. So if you have 10 or 15 different partners that have actually embedded this presentation on their own sites, you go to one place, change the presentation, and everywhere has the latest version of it. We've also been doing a heck of a lot of coordination with the where is this pest and dealing with the occurrence information. In the Southeast, we have the Southeast Early Detection Network, which is powered by the EDMAP system we use here. It has both a website for recording occurrence data and it has a mobile app. Both allow various individuals to go, find out where they see a report in the field, take their smartphone, take a picture, and send that report up. It also allows for folks to send in bulk data. So if someone's been collecting a whole bunch of the early data where they were first noticing something, they can send that to us and we can add it into the system to have a more complete picture of what's going on. So it's going into this place. The next question is, well, what happens with it? Because as much as I love data, unvetted data is really kind of garbage. And you have to have some standard in place to be able to look at it and verify what's going on. So behind the scenes, whenever there is a new report, we actually have this tool to help make it a little clearer. We drop a point on the map, we've selected a species, and we can easily see these 5 people are going to be contacted when this report comes in. They're going to be sent a link to verify whatever report was just sent in. That link has the contact information for the person that made the report. It has any pictures. It's all the information they would need to follow up on it. So they can see what's going on and they can start enlisting additional people in order to delineate where a pest is or get a status update on what current pest levels are. And from that data, because we have the date they recorded it, we have the county at least of where they reported it, it's very, very simple for us to generate different maps. This isn't anything that you have to sit there and click on the county and pick the color. We ask the database, do you have a report for this particular pest in this particular year? If so, color it in that color. These maps are also embeddable on any site that you want, so it's possible to use it in multiple places. They're also modifiable, so let me go back one slide. You see that there's certain states here that currently don't have all the county outlines in. It's literally as easy as putting a list of the states you want to show up on the map for it to generate the map and show it somewhere. This is not very complex technology at all, but it does allow for real-time visualization of where the pest occurrences are, what the spread has been, and if the data is in the system, we can always modify the map to start showing a different picture based on what those criteria are. So if you wanted, instead of spread across all time, you only want to see, well, what are my reports this year? Where are we seeing it only in this season? It's very simple to generate that map and make it available for everyone. And then the same links apply for sharing that information, either getting a static map of that, a dynamic map, or a link back to where the map should go. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to use this in multiple places. One additional advantage to starting off in this when you get a new pest introduced is that it's expected for a lot of these, for some of these invasive pests, they're going to get established. And at some point, it'll move from well, this is a new pest, we're not sure what it's going to do, is it going to fully establish, how far is this going to go? It'll eventually get to the point of, if it established, well, now it's a management issue. So how do we get that transition into forecasting and monitoring and everything else? We've already been establishing relationships between the IPM centers, the programs here at the center at Bugwood, and iPipe and other programs to allow for open sharing of that data among all partners. So there is an API that's available that the partners can hit that API, retrieve data on that species, and everyone can have the same data, the same things looking at to know where a pest is, to run their models on it, to do their own new risk assessments. We're really looking at this as being a model for how we can make things as open and hopefully promote some innovation as we can. Our first place we're really trying this out is actually with sugarcane aphid, that we have several different groups who are interested in this. There is an iPipe proposal which is dealing with sugarcane aphid down in southern Texas. We have folks all over the southern region who are supplying in additional data into EdMaps for where they've seen sugarcane aphid, and that's being processed through Rob Bowling and the others in Texas for, is this an actual find, what's going on with it. We also have a program called My Fields, which Brian McCormick out of Kansas has been working with, that you have growers and consultants using that, and they're doing scouting and finding some of these pests. So through these different web services, we're synchronizing all of that data with EdMaps being the national depository for the information, so that if anyone wants to access it, they can, and in season, real time, we can actually have movement of data between these different platforms. So everyone's models and everyone's maps are up to date. With all these different types of content, a lot of the folks want to have some central place where they'd like people to go to find information. It's very easy to set these up because they all end up having about the same sections to them. How do I report sightings? What's the distribution of it? How do I identify it? How do I control it? What other resources are available? Who do I contact? At this point, it's very simple to plop this template in place and get going. The limitation is always having the content available from the partners, from the task force, from the work group to make it available. But that usually gets overcome as the group starts up and gets momentum. There is a difference between the two in the folks working with Kudzu Bug said, we really want to have our own URL for this, our own home, our look, our feel, because we think this is going to be a continual issue and we really want to highlight it strongly. So there's kudzubug.org. For them, so far, it's been working out pretty well. I've known other pest sites like tropicalsodaapple.org. The issue didn't keep going, so eventually that site went away because it wasn't as big of an issue. I've been encouraging several folks to just consider having a subsite of edmaps.org in order to get them started, at least get the information out there, see what's going on, and that's where we start providing some information about, well, here's the latest reports that have come in, here's the latest fact sheet, and here's all the partners and their branding for where this comes in. So what we're looking at this point is more or less a starter kit. If you have a new pest coming in or you have a pest you're really trying to highlight the management activities for, we've got a really easy solution for getting that going. We need contact information and logos for the members of the working group, because everyone needs to get credit for the work being done. Send some images into the Bugwood image database. That'll make it very easy for us to get them out and reuse them in other projects like the smartphone apps, like the image collections online, everywhere else we want to do it. And anyone else can request use of those in their own publications. So it provides tracking and a simple repository for that. We need some simple text for the site to know what the biology and control information is. We need a list of who those people will be for the contacts, that if a report comes in, they get the report. Those verifiers can go down to a county level, but in most cases, we've been seeing people either claiming a species in a state, or we do have a few people who are the species czar. So Mike Merchant is the crepe myrtle bark scale czar. If any report comes in nationwide, he gets to see the report in addition to other individuals. We work with them to get the known occurrence data in. We don't need a whole lot. Who saw it? Can even be a group of people. What date they saw it, and at least a county location. And then news feeds, so we can help to have some new content showing up on the front pages of the websites as people are publishing things in their own blogs, places they would normally publish it. We want to reuse that content to help share the news. And then the only cost that might be associated with it is if you wanted the vanity URL to really have the marketing for kudzubug.org, just go there. There's some cost associated with that. The round 2 for this, because that's all pretty much the really, really low-hanging fruit. After a lot of that's in, we can go ahead and create a first detector presentation, get that registered with the National Plant Diagnostic Network. We can work with the North Central IPM Center to get the pest alert together and get that product out. And then it becomes a fairly strong candidate for going into the IPIPE program. The occurrence data will already transfer, and you can show that we already have this established place where people are going for information. IPIPE, with their modeling and their additional tools, really provides the next level. So this can be a stepping stone into a more advanced system. So with that, that's what we've kind of been looking at with our different work groups focusing on invasive species. Hopefully I didn't go into too much detail that I made anyone's eyes glaze over, but if you have questions, I can take them. I'm hearing none. Shock and awe, I know.
Hey, Joe, this is Herb.
Yep.
Have you had anybody take you up on this, or do you have an example of ones that have partially taken you up on this scheme?
Yeah, that's pretty much kudzubug.org. Tawny Crazy Ant is still finalizing their work. They're still getting their last stuff in. Spotted Wing Drosophila, we started with them a little later, and they went far more to the monitoring track faster than the rest. Delineation wasn't as long of a period for them. Crepe myrtle bark scale is up, and people are looking at it. Sugarcane aphid, they're still getting some of the content together.
So these groups that you've got listed there that you talked about, they're ones that have originated through the center's work?
They've originated through, yes, all those had originated through the center's work.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any opportunities to bring in other people in other ways?
So I do tend to be opportunistic. Whenever I hear about a new pest, I usually give someone a call over in that section and say, I hear you just found the latest creeping crud. Can we help?
Yep. Yep. And are you confining your those calls to the south? In other words, let's think for a minute about spotted wing Drosophila that came into California, then went to Washington and Oregon. Before you know it, it's across to Michigan, and now it's down the eastern seaboard and essentially across the whole United States. Knowing that happens, what kind of approach should you in the south, the IPMs, be taking with the other IPM centers?
So the approach is not limited to the south. We made the offer, we actually through the IPM information supplement, which the Southern IPM Center sits over, and offered it nationwide. If you have issues, let us know. And this is, so whenever I hear about anything, so spotted lanternfly, I immediately reached out to them. There has been some work with them through Mary K. Malinowski and Dave Clement, and using the Mid-Atlantic Early Detection Network app, because there's one for different regions of the country that have different pest species in them. So we tend to switch it around for where it's appropriate. With spotted wing Drosophila, it became a far more lengthy issue because we were pulling in data from west and east, and their visualizations are dramatically different. But we have been working with both sides of the nation.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. And I think with that, I'm probably out of my time. We can move on to the next presenter. If you have additional questions, you're always welcome to look me up.
That's Rosemary is next, Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's Rosemary. Hi, Rosemary.
Hello.
You're up.
Oh. Okay. Does everybody see the screen?
Yes,
we
ma'am.
see your presenter view.
Okay. Okay. This can be fairly short. I contacted maybe about 6 or 7 people and asked them specific questions about how we could get information and what kind of information that they would like to add to the communication plan that we started in September. And I got back information from IR4, Zera 3, and Cotton Incorporated. So there were a couple of other people who didn't respond, and I was wondering if one of the reasons for that might be they were newish people. So I was wondering if it would help for me to put together a kind of summary of the center in terms of like a history, and then along with some bullet points about our activities and signature programs and some of the things that we've done in the past. I was thinking maybe the reason people didn't respond was that they weren't really sure how we could help them. Would something like that help? Okay, well, think about it. So I'm not going to read this. I think you can all kind of look at that, but those are the items that I did add to the communication plan for the different groups. The next one was a communication survey that I sent out, unfortunately, right before Thanksgiving. And probably because of the timing, I got about 5 responses. And there were 4 who received the email, and on both announcements that I sent out, and I sent both things through Basecamp. One said that they didn't receive it, and that I was very happy that there were a couple of members that took action for it. I think one of the things that I was trying to get from this survey, well, let me back up a little bit. The survey asked, first of all, of the 2 announcements that I sent out, one was for the Enhancement Grant RFA release. The second one was for the Friends of IPM Award release. A, did you receive the email? Do you remember receiving the email? B was, if you received it, did you take action on the email? And if you took action, what did you do? If you did not take action, why didn't you take action? The bottom line was that I'm trying to figure out the best way of communicating. As Denisha said, we're trying to get our news of our releases for the RFA and for the Friends of IPM Award as broad as we can. And so it's helpful to see where the emails are going forward and where they are not going forward. Because if I'm sending them to someone in a state and that person is not forwarding them on, I need to find some way of getting news to that state. One thing that was a little concerning was the one person who didn't receive either email, and I'm wondering if that's a Basecamp problem. And then I was also concerned, one of the reasons for not taking actions was that one person said that they were getting too many emails. I didn't know if that was from the center or if that was just in general. So I'm not going to put anybody on the spot right now, but if you are in either of those categories, if you could just email me privately and let me know, and maybe we can, first of all, I can figure out how to make sure that you receive the email if you did not receive it, and if you're getting too many emails, we can work out how to reduce the load on you. So some next steps that I was thinking of in terms of communicating to a broader audience without including, you know, too many people and too many groups, is that I thought about developing some groups for emails about certain topics. The topics are up there. You can see that those are the ones that I thought about, or they were also from the suggestions in the communication plan. If one of those was your suggestion, then I'm going to automatically put you in that group. They will probably be emails either through a listserv or directly, depending on how many people are in that group. And I'm also looking for other interests for other topics. So if you have an interest in a topic that you think that we can, you know, communicate with you, like for instance, if you want to know what kind of working groups are getting together because you want to be involved in the, if you want to know more about the pollinator working group because you'd like to be more involved in that, send me an email and I will develop a group and add you to that. Another thing that I am considering doing, because we had a request from somebody to write a description of their program for our blog to go out in our newsletter, is I thought that was a really great idea to do for all of the groups in the advisory council, to just kind of give a little bit of face time to some of the different groups who are involved in the center program. And you can either do the feature yourself, if you like to write. If you do not like to write, if you can just provide me with a description of your program, so I have something to work with, then I will probably get back in touch with you, and then I will write something that will appear in the Wednesday morning newsletter. And I think that's it.
Rosemary, this is Jean-Jacques.
Yes.
Are you interested in people answering the survey still?
Yes. In fact, I sent out another request for people who did not attend the meeting, and that goes for also people who are attending the meeting. If you did not attend, if you didn't answer the survey, I really would love to know the answers to those questions. And the reason is that I'm just trying to figure out the best way of because obviously I can't send an email to every single researcher and people who and person in the South who would be interested in our grant program. So I rely on people to forward those emails, and I'm just trying to figure out who are good people for me to send that will forward them to you know, the broadest range of people.
Oh, so everybody can help by turning it in then, still?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good.
And the link should be in Basecamp, which hopefully everybody got through their email earlier.
Hi, Rosemary. It's Blair here in Poplarville.
Yes.
I initially, I'm not that that person that you were mentioned, but I had some problems with my base camp initially because we had some kind of conflict with our firewall or our security.
Right.
Got it up and going, and I have been getting all the emails from the
Okay.
IPM Center. Some of them were very helpful. I had no guidance on where to send them. I didn't know if I should send them or forward them to colleagues of mine. I was just wondering. I'd be happy to do that more often. I didn't know what to do with the emails at the time. I've been saving them.
Okay.
But I'm just wondering, do I just send them to colleagues that I know would be interested?
Yes. Yeah, anybody, especially in your state, that you think would be interested in applying for either. And the Friends of IPM deadline is not until the 18th. So I'm going to send out another reminder today about that deadline. And if you wouldn't mind sending that on, because we have gotten a couple of applications in the past from Mississippi.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I think we're pretty good at that point, so I'm going to transfer over to Jean-Jacques Dubois.
Oops.
All right. I see that we are already at 1:56, so I'm going to be brief. Two things. At the September meeting, the consensus among the members who were there was that you would like to know how you can help with evaluation, and everybody, I think, or almost everybody, would like to see some sort of network mapping or sample analysis for IPM in the South, right? Well, as it turns out, as we discussed before, it's probably not feasible to interview all the IPM actors in the South. It's just too big a group, right? However, the advisory council, given their position in each of their state and universities, would probably be able, together as a group, we probably have that map somewhere. We have all the information we need to get a good map going. So the way it's going to happen in the next few weeks, you're going to get the first of two, calls for help from me, and both of them are going to be more than certainly they're going to be in the form of an Excel sheet, right? A pre-populated Excel sheet, maybe a nice form, right? And the first one is going to be polling the group to identify all the actors, mostly organizational actors, and just come up with a big old list, right? And with already at this point some additional information that I will ask you about, just how, essentially how much influence you think they have over, adoption of IPM and spreading IPM in their particular province, right? Once we have that, we'll be able to do the second of those forms, which will then really delve into the relationships among all those people and all those people and organizations, right? So that hopefully this should help, that will help communication a great deal, and it will also help us to get a basis for how much good we do over time. In other words, this is an exercise we could update maybe a few years down the line. That would be extremely useful to see what we've accomplished. So the two steps. The first one will be in the next few weeks, and I will really count on the members of the advisory council to provide us with all the information they can possibly share on that. And it will be straightforward to fill out, right? Straightforward to provide the information, but it is going to be a lot of information. So in other words, it is kind of survey-like, and those things tend to be fairly long survey. They're very repetitive, right? It's this group or that group. How do they communicate with that group? Do they provide fund to this group? It's very repetitive, but it should get us a good map. The other thing I'm going to ask help with is I'm getting ready to start a retrospective study of the IPM enhancement grants. What happens is that those grants are very short. They're just 1 year, but we know that they do a lot of good well beyond that year, right? And it's really difficult to get back to people who have received those grants and find out, well, what became of it? Did they gather more funding? Did they pull more people into the project? Did they, what about their original objectives? Did they accomplish them, beyond the 1 year when we talked to them? So the center here is going to need to contact all those people from the last, essentially since 2010 or 11, right? And so what, I will send you a list of all the people I've contacted and ask you to, if you can, contact them on your own and beg them to please give us that information if they have it. So nothing heavy, more like a narrative, few good details of okay, we went on to get so many. You first gave us $20,000, and last year we got $5 million from the USDA. Has now become national. We started local, you helped us grow regional, and now it's national, that sort of thing. So those are the two things that you can expect from me, I guess, before the end of the year. Any questions?
John Jock, this is Charles Allen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would be interested in knowing if you can break those your network analysis out by state.
Oh yes, yes, of course. Once all the data is in, it's relatively simple to zoom in, if you will, on different parts and zones. And of course, the information will only be as good as the information how many people do we have on the advisory council, Joe?
30 and change.
Okay, so it will only be as good as the information provided by those 30 and change people. So in other words, when you get Charles, when you get that first request for information, this first Excel workbook, it is best for you, if you're very interested in what's going on in Texas, it is in your best interest to list a lot of all the people you'd be interested in finding out. Now, it's not a given that other people will know about the interaction among those actors, right? And so I guess what you make, what I'm thinking is that if you have collaborators who are not on the advisory council, but you think you can talk them into providing some information, that would be fantastic. So what I'm saying, Charles, is if it's just you in Texas and nobody else can give us information about the relationship among the people you would like to know about, it is going to be pretty sparse. Make sense?
Muted. Yes. I'm trying to talk to you with my mute button on, so you weren't hearing anything. But yeah, I think I would try to enlarge the group. What is your deadline for having responses back on that part of it, on the
Okay, well, that's yeah. I would like to. You know what? Since we're all here, since a bunch of us are here, when would be a good time? What I'm trying to find out, Charles, is I mean, there's no true urgency to this, right? So it would be best if you tell me that between now and the end of the year is going to be horribly busy for everybody. I don't know. Then we say end of January. When does the group think would be the best time to do this? And like I said, it's going to take a little bit of work. I'm not talking days of work, but probably a couple hours.
So for me, I'm just talking Texas.
Right.
I could do my part quickly. But if I farm it out to others,
right, all right,
the amount of time it will take to get the responses will increase.
Right.
And I would try to do that quickly, but I know at this time of year there are a lot of reports that are required, and people.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
So, you know, I think a lot of that slows down in January. For me, it doesn't, but for them, it does. So I think, you know, I could get my state report or my state response back. And another question I have, I guess, is I'm trying to visualize what this looks like. Can I send you individuals, people's spreadsheets, or will I need to compile those for the state and send you a compiled spreadsheet?
I'm not sure I understand what you.
Okay, your input from me. Can it be from 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 individuals with each of them?
You mean, would you be expected to like compile the data from all the people you pass it along to?
Yes. Do you want me to compile it, or will you compile it?
Each person should just send me the thing. And when I say a couple hours, I'm thinking of the step 2, depending on how big the pool of actors we agree to study. That part can be long. The first part, just giving just creating a big list of all the people in IPM, all the organizations in IPM in the South, that is not terribly cumbersome.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I guess that's it. That's all I can think of right now.
Thank you.
We are pretty much at time. We did start a little late. If anyone has any additional questions and they wish to stay on, I'm willing to stay on and answer stuff. But for anyone else who has to jump off, I'd like to thank you for joining the call and helping us move forward with all the stuff we've been doing.